Hello, and welcome back, my fellow brethrens. I know it's been a while. Now today, I want to do something a little bit different than the usual. Instead of making a video fully dedicated to numbers and some mysteries surrounding the NBA, I want to do something a little bit more open, and that is to simply rank the top 20 best players in the NBA into an ordered tier list based solely on my opinion. Now, before we begin, one tiny change I need to update here is Ja Morant and Joel Embiid. Ja's now out for the entire season with a shoulder injury, and Embiid has a chance to come back in 8 weeks, but when he does, there'll be not much of the season left for him anyway. So for now, I'm gonna move him to the side. So without further ado, let's start with Kevin Durant. KD, in my opinion, is not as mobile and effective as he used to be, but nevertheless, he's still a 7-footer that can shoot, dribble, pass, around, and over anybody at any time. And despite how I feel KD is playing, the numbers say he's still a top player in the league, as KD's 5th in points per game, 10th in value over replacement, he's on par to obtain another 50, 40, 90 season, and on average ranks 12th in the NBA across all basic and advanced stats. Despite the great season so far, the Suns are currently 8th in the West, so with everything taken into consideration, I feel KD is the 8th best player in the NBA right now. Anthony Davis. AD once again is having some difficulty staying on the court as he's played about 30 games this season. But man, when AD is playing, he's an absolute monster, controlling both sides of the court with his shot-stifling defense and interior finishing. In my opinion, when AD is healthy, he is at least a top 3 defender in the NBA. With that said, AD is 5th in blocks, 4th in rebounds, 18th in points, and 3rd in defensive win shares this season. However, the Lakers are still trailing behind the rest of the contenders in the West, so with everything said, I think he falls as the 12th best player at the moment. On to LeBron. Now, LeBron may be 39 years old, but he is still one of the most effective players in the NBA. He can still control the game with his physical and cerebral attributes on both ends of the court when it matters the most. I mean, just look at their playoff run last season, being a 7 seed going all the way to the Western Conference Finals, and this season, they even won the in-season tournament as well. But with that said, this season LeBron is 10th in value over replacement, 10th in assists, 19th in points, and 19th in offensive box plus minus. So again, with everything considered and his team's record, I believe LeBron is the 13th best player right now, just right behind AD. So Jimmy. Okay, Jimmy, as we know, is not a regular season player. I mean, he plays well in the regular season, but in the playoffs, this is where Jimmy plays out of the Heat system. Similar with the Lakers, the Heat and his key players are more playoff oriented. But with that said, Jimmy is still a good player during the regular season, being a borderline all-star, as he is currently 20th in the league in offensive win shares, 23rd in value over replacement, 16th in steals, 5th in free throws, and that's about it. I mean, Jimmy's a playoff player. We know this. So that said, I'm gonna put Jimmy as the 17th best player this season. I think that's a pretty good spot. So moving on to Bam. Bam Adebayo, in my opinion, is the Heat's #1 option during the regular season. I would say Bam is by far one of the most underrated players in the NBA in both the playoffs and the regular season. With that said though, Bam right now is currently 2nd in the league in 2-point efficiency, 8th in the league in rebounding, 10th in the league in defensive win shares. I would say Bam is the 18th best player in the NBA right now. Next is Jaylen Brown. JB's having another solid season, of course. Just like any other Celtics player, their individual stats are lower than expected, simply because of how good everyone on this team is. But nevertheless, JB's having a good season, averaging around 22 points per game, a steal, and surprisingly ranks 18th best in the NBA in defensive win shares. Sadly though, I would grade him as the 20th best player in the NBA. Him and Paul George could be debatable though, so we'll see how this turns out at the end. Next is Domantas Sabonis. Personally, I haven't watched Sabonis that much this season, but his numbers surprise me, that's for sure. Hear this. Sabonis ranks 1st in rebounds, 5th in assists, 4th in offensive win shares, 18th in box plus minus, 5th in value over replacement, and the Kings are currently 7th in the competitive Western Conference right now. I mean, how is this guy not an all-star? Regardless, I believe Sabonis sits at the 14th spot at the moment. Now we have Stephen Curry. My favorite. Well, not really. Despite how Curry's made me feel in the past, this guy is always dominating. The Warriors may be 10th in the West, but Curry is not the issue. I mean, Klay Thompson is now on the bench, Draymond is playing like Bill Laimbeer from the 90s, and where the hell is Kevin Looney? Like, I haven't seen this guy play at all this season. Okay, but anyway, Curry ranks 7th in the league in points, 1st in 3-pointers made, 5th in free throws, 11th in offensive box plus minus, and 14th in the NBA in terms of value replacement. With that said, I'll put Curry as the 6th best player in the NBA. Good job, Steph. Let's now move on to Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has been leading the Cavs on an 18-2 win streak in the last month of the NBA. Spida is currently top 5 in the league in 3-pointers made, 4th in steals, 5th in points, 7th in value over replacement, and 14th in the NBA in defensive win shares. With that said, I put Mitchell as the 7th best player in the NBA right now. It's kind of weird for me to do this, but the Cavs are playing this good, and so is Donovan Mitchell. Okay, Devin Booker. Devin Booker, per usual, is still one of the best offensive players in the game, as Booker's 8th in points per game, 13th in assists, 8th in offensive win shares, and the Suns have been playing well for this part of the season, but in my opinion after that Mavs game, they're looking a little bit shaky. So with that said, I'll put D-Book at the 15th spot for now. On to Ant-Man. Anthony Edwards has played the best season of his career so far in my opinion. He has the T-Wolves as the 1-seeded team in the West. I don't think anybody expected the Timberwolves to be the 1 seed in the West this year, and with that said, Ant-Man is 13th in the NBA in points per game, 5th in assists, ranks 4th in defensive win shares, and 19th in terms of value replacement. All this to say, Ant-Man is athletic, skilled, and in my opinion, the 9th best player in the NBA right now. Next up is Kawhi. The fun guy is actually having a very healthy season for his standards. In terms of some of the outstanding stats that Kawhi's done this season, he's 9th in the NBA in steals, 22nd in points per game, 20th in player efficiency rating, 20th in overall box plus minus, and 8th in the NBA in value over replacement. So with taking into account all this and the fact that the Clippers are playing so well right now, I believe Kawhi is the 12th best player in the NBA right now. Moving on to Giannis. Despite the Bucks' ups and downs this season with all the new coaches and whatnot, Giannis is carrying the load, being 4th in the league in points per game, 6th in rebounds, 20th in assists, 3rd in offensive win shares, and 4th in value over replacement. With that said, I believe Giannis is the 4th best player in the NBA at the moment. Next is PG-13. Paul George is having a solid season, becoming an all-star once again. He is 5th in the league in three-pointers made, 11th in the league in steals, 34th in points, and similar to Kawhi, is top in the league in defensive win shares, being ranked 30th in the NBA in this metric. PG is nice. I'll have him one tick in front of Jaylen Brown right now, but it's close. Both are pretty similar, but I'm going with PG. Now we have Jason Tatum. By every metric, Tatum is having another top 5 MVP season this year, as Tatum is currently ranked 10th in the NBA in points per game, 15th in three-pointers made, 13th in defensive rebounds, 8th in overall win shares, and 10th in overall value replacement. With the Celtics absolutely running through the regular season right now, Tatum is the best player on the best team at this current moment, which I believe gives him the spot of being the 5th best player in the NBA. So let's talk about Luka. Luka Doncic is by far the most dominating force in the NBA right now, absolutely carrying the load for this Mavs team. Luka ranks 3rd in three-pointers made, 3rd in free throws, 9th in defensive rebounds, 1st in points per game, 13th in player efficiency rating, 3rd in assists, 5th in win shares, and had a 73-point game this year. Oh yes, he also ranked 3rd in value over replacement, and yes, that's a lot. So despite all those phenomenal stat lines, team success does weigh a bit in my book. So with that said, I hate to do this, but Luka, in my opinion, is the 2nd best player in the NBA right now. With the Mavs' new acquisitions, the Mavs could probably knock up a top 4 seed by the end of this season. So winning the MVP is very, very much in line for Luka still to this point. Now let's move on to Jalen Brunson. Brunson's been balling the last 2 seasons, but this season specifically is the best season of his career. Brunson is currently 9th in the league in points, 16th in assists, 7th in offensive win shares, and 15th in value over replacement. Brunson has led this Knicks team to the 4th best record in the East. With all this said, I have Jalen Brunson as the 16th best player this season. Now we are down to 3 players left here. So we're going to start here with Mr. Haliburton. So to be honest, I never knew how effective Tyrese Haliburton really was until I started watching him in the in-season tournament. A tall point guard with smooth passing, a deep 3-ball, and a deceptive shot makes him, in my opinion, one of the best point guards in the East. Haliburton's also keeping pace that the Pacers are in the 7th spot in the East. He's 1st in assists in the NBA, 11th in three-pointers, 16th in player efficiency rating, and 8th in the league in value over replacement. With all that said, this is going to be a tough guy to place, but I think I'm going to place him as the 12th best player in the NBA right now, just a smidge ahead of AD and LeBron. With Haliburton out of the way, we are now left with Jokic and SGA, the perfect final picks, because if you don't have these guys in your top 3 right now, you must be living under a rock, because these 2 guys have everything going for them in terms of winning the MVP right now. A winning team, both top 2 in win shares, both top 10 in offensive box plus minus, both top 2 in value over replacement, both top 10 in player efficiency rating. SGA is 1st in the league in steals, both top 4 in defensive win shares, and so on. Now, in a video I made a couple months ago, I did a whole cutthroat machine learning process using about anything and everything I could find to determine our MVP at the end of the season, and boy, SGA might make me pay from cutting him from the batch of the final contenders. But with that said, I'm sticking to my word, as I believe Jokic is the best player in the game still, and will walk away with his 3rd league MVP at the end of the season. And that's it, 20 of the best players in the NBA all ranked into an ordered structured tier list. I want to know, who do y'all think are the top 5 best players in the league right now, and who do y'all think will walk away with the MVP at the end of the season? Let me know in the comments below, and like I always say, I'll see you all next time.